Hello, music fans. Today I'm reviewing the latest album by Caligula's Horse called Charcoal Grace, which I have here on vinyl. This was released on January 26th, 2024. I'll also give my thoughts on their live tour for this album at the end, which I saw in Toronto. And this is the second time I've made a kind of longer album review video. Usually on my channel, I focus on trying to cover lots of releases and just giving quick first impressions, maybe talking about an album for 1 minute or so and talking about kind of what it sounds like. But for this one, I wanted to dive deep because I love it so much and really want to give this band some love and spread the word. This is progressive metal. This is their sixth album. They're an Australian band. Now, Caligula's Horse is Jim Gray on vocals. We have Sam Vallon on guitars. He does production, engineering, mixing, and arranging as well. Dale Prince on bass, engineering, and photography, and Josh Griffin on drums. They have some additional guest musicians here on some of the tracks. They have Kate Darapas on cello, Sophie Willis on flute and clarinet, Victoria Taylor on trumpet, and Samuel Andrews on violin. And of course, all these musicians just do a great job. The performances on this album are just awesome. The production's great. And then additional personnel are Jared Adlam doing some engineering, Forrester Saville doing mastering. And then on the art side, we have this artwork on the cover here done by Chris Panettiere, and the layout and design of the booklet in the album is done by Chris Stevenson Mangos. Before diving into the music and lyrics, let's start with the album art. Great art here by Chris Panettiere. It's a woman's head, but it's either twirling in smoke or it's like a ghost. And this is the front cover version of it. And then we have the back cover version where you see more of the hair and then the face is beaming off. So that's pretty cool. Let's open up to see the inside. It's a gatefold. So in here on the inside, you have the track listing here on one side, and you can see a little bit of the woman's face there again. And then on the other side of the gatefold, you have the credits for the album, everyone who played on it. They're the band giving a thanks and things like that. So that's the main artwork, but then there's also an insert here that has the lyrics, and then it has photography. So I'm assuming Dale Prince did the photography, and then Chris Stevenson Mangos did the layout and design of this booklet and the lyrics, if I'm understanding the credits properly. So you have some cool shots of the band recording. You even have the guest musicians there on flute, trumpet, cello, lyrics. Pretty cool. And let's just take a quick peek at the actual vinyl. It's two discs. I'm not going to pull out both and show them to you because they're both the same color. And it's kind of blue. Very cool colored vinyl. So that's what it looks like. Now let's talk a bit more about what the music sounds like. So Caligula's Horse has stated that their influences are Steely Dan. Sam Vallon wrote his honors thesis on Steely Dan's harmonic vocabulary back in 2013, and Caligula's Horse frequently uses their signature add to chords in their compositions. I learned about this by just reading online, musicradar.com. They had 10 questions for Caligula's Horse guitarist Sam Vallon, and that's what I read in that interview. Other influences that the band has mentioned in a Reddit AMA that I found from about 4 years ago are King Crimson, Jeff Buckley, Opeth, Agent Fresco, Exploring Birdsong, Tori Amos, and Peter Gabriel. And I can hear bits of those artists in their sound. Maybe not really Jeff Buckley so much, but I hear bits of most of the others. If I were to describe the artists that I think they sound most similar to me, they sound most similar to bands like Haken, Leprous, Agent Fresco, Dream Theater, Opeth, and Tesseract, because they do progressive metal. They use primarily clean vocals like those bands do, or at least in Opeth's case, like they have done more recently. There are virtually no screams on this album, Charcoal Grace, except for a brief moment. I think I heard a scream in the second track, Gollum. So if you like those bands that I mentioned, you'll probably like this album by Caligula's Horse. So let's talk a bit more in depth about the music composition here, track by track. And I'll also call out which tracks they played live. So the opening track is The World Breathes With Me. It's a 10-minute track, and I saw this one live. This is what they opened with live as well. This is nice, soft, and beautiful. It has an instrumental opening for the first minute 40 with the great guitar playing, and then it starts to get heavy. There's a great guitar solo at 1:58 with melodic playing and some finger tapping. The vocals don't come in for a while on this song. They come in at 2:38. There's cool polyrhythms here between 5 and 4 beats per bar in this song. There's some genty guitar playing in this song. And yeah, they opened with this song when I saw them live in Toronto on the tour as well. It's a great way to open an album and a great way to open a live show. Then the second track, Gollum, I also saw this one live, and this was also the second track live. And this one hits right away with a bouncy, heavy, genty guitar riff. And there's a cool lead part. The bass and drums do a lot of syncopated accents on Gollum, really leaning into that gent influence. And then the one scream that I mentioned on the album, it comes at 1:07 to about 1:11. It's pretty much the only harsh vocal scream on the entire album. The rest of the vocals on the album are all beautiful, soaring, and powerful, clean singing. And when they played this song live in Toronto, the effects on the guitar sounded really weird. I think it's possible that maybe the guitar cut out during the main verse riffs, and I was just hearing the backing track, which had a keyboard or something also doubling and playing the main riff too. It was either a technical difficulty or they decided to have the guitar effect on this song be very different live than on the album. There's an awesome guitar solo in this song, Gollum, at 3:54. Now let's talk about the big epic suite in the middle. They didn't put it all as one track on Spotify or anything. They kind of broke it up on streaming, but it's supposed to be a suite. The Charcoal Grace, it's got 4 parts: Pray, A World Without, Vigil, and Give Me Hell. On Pray, we have a 5 beat per bar intro. It starts soft, and then great melodic guitar lead comes in around 30 seconds into the song. And then this song flows seamlessly into the next song in the suite, as most of them do. The second song in the suite, A World Without, is a softer song than the 3 that came before it. Amazing guitar solo again. Pretty much every guitar solo on this album is just so damn good. The guitar solo is at 5:20. Part 3, Vigil, starts with an acoustic guitar. It's even softer than the previous song. It's the softest song on the album, I think. A very cool song. And then the last part of the epic suite, Charcoal Grace, is Give Me Hell. And this one picks up and gets heavier than the last 2 tracks. It uses 5 beats per bar a lot. It has some parts where it goes to 6. The violin in the arrangement on this song sounds great as well. The whole song just sounds sinister, angry, and sad all at the same time. The section with whispered vocals helps with that atmosphere. Another great guitar solo from 4:50 onwards to end the song. Then we've got the last 3 tracks that aren't part of the epic suite. We've got Sails, which starts with a soft guitar riff and soft singing over a triplet feel. Sounds like there's a slide guitar leads on this song. Really great vocal harmonies on here, starting at about 1:30. Great guitar solo at 2:58. Then it goes into a part with 7 beats per bar, and it ends with the same soft guitar riff it started with. So they didn't play any of those middle songs live. They played the first 2 songs from the album, and then they played the last 2 songs from this album when I saw them live, which are The Storm Chaser, which is a 6-minute track, and it's one that they released ahead of the album release, and they have a great music video for it that people should check out. The Storm Chaser is more of a softer melodic song, especially in the verses. The chorus goes a little harder, but it's still melodic. I like the guitar chords that they use in the chorus. The chords just sound so big. The atmospheric keyboard samples in the background behind the song really add to the beautiful atmosphere. The vocal harmonies are all great too. The guitar solo is awesome. One of the most unique guitar solos on the album because he plays it with a much cleaner tone than most of the other solos, which kind of makes it remind me of Polyphia. And then the final track, Mute, which they also played live, is my favorite track on the album. The way it starts with just isolated vocals chanting with no instruments behind it. I think there is maybe a soft, sustained keyboard sound just holding a note softly behind the vocals. It's such an awesome way to start the last song of the album and the last song in the set. It was the last song in their set other than their encore. They did play an encore after this. And then when the whole band starts playing after the opening vocal, I just love the melodic lead guitar playing. I love the chords the guitar uses behind the vocals when the vocals come back in. This song really goes all over the place. We've got a flute solo next, and then it goes back to vocals and soft guitar. Then the vocals get more power behind them when the guitars and bass get heavier. And it has a section that's kind of like a chorus. And then at 4 minutes or so, 4:05, it has a genty guitar chugging that's reminiscent of Meshuggah, but clean vocals come in above it, which makes me think of Tesseract. And then at the 7-minute mark, it almost sounds like the song could be over, but it has a bit of a fake out ending where it just hangs on 2 clean notes ringing out on the guitar and a synth pad for 30 seconds straight in this droning way. But then a flute solo kicks in over the top of that ambience, and some nice clean guitar arpeggios happen behind it. It sounds just beautiful. It picks up into a more emotional climactic section with heavier guitar tones. It sounds like it could have ended again around the 10-minute mark, but they come back in with a final chorus. So I guess my main critique of this song, ending an album or a concert with this particular song, is for people who don't know the song, it sounds like it could be over like almost 2 or 3 times during the song. Like people at the live show would be clapping at those parts in the song like it was over, but there's still more. But I imagine that's their artistic intention though with this song, because they know what they're doing. Like you can clearly hear that there's these sections that end and it sounds like, oh, nice. But it's a great epic journey of a 12-minute song. I really like listening to it. The kind of fake out endings don't really bother me. It's just an observation that I thought I'd mention. So I just have to say all the performances on this album are just amazing from everyone across the whole album. I was thinking maybe I'd talk a little bit about lyrics in this video. I'm not really a lyrics expert. I'm usually primarily focused on music, but I do want to dive in a bit. I think the lyrics in this album are interesting. For the first track, The World Breathes With Me, when I read the lyrics, the first couple of verses sound like they're describing people who do nothing except maybe do some drugs or watch TV and watch bad stuff happening on the news with apathy, like bad stuff like the pandemic, like war. They have lyrics like, so this is who we are, forced to want to watch the sorrow, the short leash and the lead, the suicide, the addict, the voyeur, the dead. Are you comfortable? Did you do enough of nothing? Hand to heart and lungs and barely breathing. So those are some intense words right there. And the chorus sounds like it's saying these apathetic people just convince themselves that everything is okay and that there is peace on earth, even though there isn't. The second track, Gollum, I found the lyrics of that one the hardest to understand on the album, so I'm not sure what that song's all about, but the lyrics sound really cool. Now for the epic suite, this one's more of a story. For the first part, Pray, when I read the lyrics, it seems to be addressing people who impose their beliefs on others, particularly their religious beliefs, and who pass judgment on others, saying they're going to hell. Perhaps people have judged the protagonist of this suite for something that goes against their religious beliefs, like how a lot of extremely religious people are against things like homosexuality or other things like that. Lyrics in this song that make me think that are Things like I'll smile my way to my own hell. And then there's the chorus, there's no room for me in your small heaven, but nothing could erase me or what I am. And you let your righteous fury burn with hallowed hate, you pray. And then I noticed pray in the song title and the lyrics is spelled like a predator's prey, but it is worth noting that even if it wasn't intentional by the band, that it could also sound like pray as in a religious person praying. I'd be very curious to know if the band intended that comparison, being a predator's prey and praying in a religious sense, because there's a lot of more religious imagery in this song than like predators and praying in that sense. Things like, so give me hell, tell God I wish him well. The second part of the suite, A World Without, the lyrics of the first verse seem to be a voicemail from a father to his son. It seems like they had a falling out and the father is trying to apologize. Seems like maybe the father is about to die based on the lyrics saying, well, they say there's not much more time, and a world without me is not enough. And he also says, overwhelmed and terrified, he's waiting to judge me. I know I said there's hope above. So I think the father's talking about how he's worried about God passing judgment on him. The last bridge of this song seems to be the son's thoughts to his father after the father passes away. The son was likely the protagonist in the first part of the suite as well, and the father was someone who imposed his beliefs on him and judged him and said he was going to hell. You hear that in lyrics like, you cast your shadow, lingering only as long as the sun, I won't follow, and things like, but down you fell, so give me hell, tell God I wish him well. And then in part 3, Vigil, based on the track title of Vigil, their special time for family and friends to honor the transition into death. So I think that someone has died. Perhaps it's the father, the protagonist's father. Maybe it's the protagonist's mother, or maybe it's both. A bit unclear from the lyrics, but they reference the title in this album. They reference the title of the album and the suite in this song, Charcoal Grace. They say, to silence in her charcoal grace. I notice they say her, so perhaps it's the mother who has passed away, and perhaps charcoal grace refers to her ashes. In the previous track, in the father's voicemail, the father referenced that he wanted to apologize for everything he said to him and his mother. It sounded like the father was going to pass away to me based on that voicemail, but perhaps both the father and the mother passed away. At the end of this song, you hear that the son cannot forgive either his father or his mother, or both, even with them gone now. And then in the last part of the suite, Give Me Hell, the lyrics in this part sound like the son's thoughts after his parents are both, after either one of his parents or both parents who judged him have passed away. Lyrics that make me think this are things like, but you're only here in this reflection, go on, preach to me on love again. I think them only being there in this reflection means that his parents are only here in as much as he's a reflection of his parents. The son talks about how they preached to him and talked about how he will go to hell, but he feels that his hell was them. Lyrics like, I would bear this hate into the depths to see you choke on it. Hell is you. And give back the years you stole and beg me. I can still see you here in my reflection. Go on, preach to me on hell now. I am the hate you gave me. I am only what you made me. Hell is you. That's a lot of deep stuff. It sounds to me like the suite is about the protagonist not having a great relationship with his parents and them judging him, passing judgment on him for living in a way that's against their religious beliefs, and they die, and he still feels this pain and about his relationship with them. He can't forgive them even after they're passing away. So that's an intense song. Then we have the seventh track, Sails, And I noticed that in both the 7th track and 8th track, Sails and Storm Chaser, they both talk about storms and water. They generally have sailing imagery like sail, waves, and shore are words that they use in the song Sails. And then float, sea, anchor, rope are words that they use in the Storm Chaser. Sails seems to be about someone who's moving on, either mentally or possibly even physically moving somewhere else where they expect their situation to improve, but they still don't end up feeling better even in their new place. And then the Storm Chaser, according to Sam Valen in his chat with the Prague Report, which I quickly perused through and read, the Storm Chaser is about the divide we all saw through the pandemic, how rather than banding together to overcome the challenge of those years, many chose to serve themselves at the expense of their community and their society. Watching this, as we all did, was a humbling and infuriating experience for the band Caligula's Horse, and it has lingered in all of us. Now let's talk about the lyrics to the final track, Mute. When I read the lyrics to this, I thought it might be written from the perspective of God, based on the lyrics like, I made mountains, I shook the earth below, flood from the fountain, I carved my name in stone, and I stood on the mountain with nothing in the way, feet firm on the mountain with no voice to speak and nothing left to say. Either that, or if you take a more science-based interpretation of these words, it could be referring to continental plates colliding, earthquakes shaking the earth, causing floods and carving stone. I thought the lyric, won't you sing to me for a while? My voice is your voice, not yours, but our voice. So rejoice, ensnared with me, also sounded like it could be singing from the perspective of God. Alternatively, the whole song can be from the perspective of the earth itself, or weather, earthquakes, floods, and rain, with the line, who can save me now, referring to trying to save the planet, and on the road to ruin, referring to humanity causing climate change that could lead the earth to ruin. Apologies to everyone, I am not a lyric expert. This is just me trying to get into a new thing here on this channel with these deeper reviews where I don't just talk about the music and how it sounds and what other band it sounds like, but where I actually get into the meanings or my interpretations of them. Please, if someone from the band watches this and can shed some light on any of the explanations I gave, or if there's anything where I'm way off and you want to correct me, definitely correct me down in the comments. I appreciate anyone else's thoughts on what these songs mean and what they think it sounds like, because I might have missed stuff on the musical side as well. I read some lyric explanations on Reddit, and some of the best ones I found were about the Charcoal Grace Suite. And I want to actually read the usernames of the people. I think it was Endeavorin and Fully Depreciated Pep on Reddit that had what I thought was the best explanation. They analyzed the lyrics pretty extensively, and Endeavoron said the Charcoal Gray Suite is about a man with a very conservative and religious father who goes off the deep end into anti-vax and COVID conspiracism. The father was unaccepting, perhaps because his son was queer or simply an atheist, and it causes intense conflict between the father and son, as well as the mother. And that in a world without, we get a mix of perspectives largely from the father, full of regret and convinced his own God will damn him to hell. And in Vigil, the father is dead or dying preventively of COVID or some other harm of his own making. And the son is grappling with his rage at his father for his hypocrisy and all the harm he did. The son ultimately determines that it's best to just give in completely to the justified anger. And yeah, I think that seems to line up with my interpretation, although my interpretation might have been kind of influenced by reading this. And I think another person chimed in and added some more color, that there's a son, a father, and a mother, and a word without references that the father is sorry for everything he said to the son and his mother. and that Vigil's chorus says to silence in her charcoal grace. So this user's theory is that the father preached anti-vax, got both himself and the mother sick, and then the mother passed away, and the father is on his deathbed when the son is raging at him, which is also possible. It sounds like the mother and son have potentially been suffering from the father's small-mindedness and abuse for a long time, and the son regrets never being able to free his mother from his father's tyranny. So charcoal grace to this user has a few meanings. First, literally, she's passed away and possibly been cremated, so this mother's ashes. And second, since hell is you equates to living with the father as hell, the mother was suffering and burning to charcoal. Her life happiness smudged and smeared and weakened to a shadow of her younger self. And it's likely the mother in the album art as well, according to this user. And this user put a few edits to this post. They suggest that what the father said to the mother was blaming her for raising an unacceptable son, possibly a queer son. The line, the soil is tainted, sounds like the father is casting blame on her. It's not the father's fault the fruit is tainted. His seed was fine and righteous. It's the soil, the father being the seed, and then the mother being the soil where the seed is planted. That's an interesting idea. I didn't even think of it that way. And then a world without me is not enough is sung by both the father and the son. According to this Reddit user, the father's meaning in the chorus is selfish, that a world without him alive is unfair, unjust, and he's rejecting death. And the son's meaning post-chorus is spiteful, that the father disowned him and the father dying alone is not enough suffering for the hurt he caused. So that's a lot of interesting stuff. You can sometimes find some good lyrical analysis on Reddit or other places online. I want to talk about what I thought the album title Charcoal Grace meant, and then mention what the band says it means. So charcoal, of course, is a porous, black solid consisting of an amorphous form of carbon. This is just a definition from a dictionary. Obtained as a residue when wood, bone, or other organic matter is heated in the absence of air. And grace is courteous goodwill. So to me, charcoal grace could mean that someone's seemingly courteous goodwill is stained charcoal black. So it seems like they have goodwill, but they don't really have goodwill. They pretend like they're righteous, but they're not. It could also mean the ashes of a dead cremated person, perhaps the protagonist's mother who died or his father who died in the story of the big suite on the album. And then when they reference the album title in the lyrics in part 3 of the suite, Vigil, they talk about her charcoal grace, so that's what led me to think it's the protagonist's mother's ashes is the meaning of charcoal grace. But in an interview with the band by the Prague Report, they say the title Charcoal Grace is described by the band as the grim allure and strange beauty in stillness, silence, and loss, which is an interesting description. So that's all I'll touch on now for the lyric analysis. I realize lyrics has probably consumed the majority of this video now, but there's a lot to say there. I want to touch on anything else in the album that I want to cover. So let's talk about innovation. I think the band stays within the bounds of sounds that have been done before in progressive metal. So it's not truly innovative, but I think their expert use of harmony, melody, and rhythm, as well as 10 out of 10 guitar solos, really puts them in the upper echelons, the highest caliber of what's been done in the genre of progressive metal before. Caligula's Horse has that more modern prog metal influence of the djent sound, but I don't think anybody would consider them a djent band because they have so many other tricks and sounds up their sleeves. They don't just rely on that djent sound the whole time. I'd put them in the same category of prog metal as Hagen and Dream Theater, and that is the category of untouchable greatness. The production on the album is great. Everything sounds pristine and clear. And then let's talk quickly about the album flow and sequence. I think the flow and the sequence of the tracks, like what order they're in, is just great. I saw another review, I think it was on the Notes Reviews channel. He didn't like the epic Charcoal Grace suite was in the middle of the album, but I actually kind of like it there. I like how it flows there. I feel that Mute, which is my favorite track of the album, is actually the perfect album closer, and also that The World Breathes With Me is the perfect album opener. So I think they opened and closed the album perfectly. I like the epic in the middle. They also opened and closed their concert with the opening and closing track on this album. And it was great seeing them in Toronto on their Charcoal Grace tour with those songs as well. Just a perfect way to open and close a concert. So what's my overall score here? Let me just quickly talk about my rating scale that I use. This is always open for suggestions, so let me know if you have a better idea of how to do these videos. This is only my second really deep album review, but I've got my top tier is masterpiece, then I've got near masterpiece, excellent, very good, good, average, below average, and not good, runaway. And for this one, I'm giving it my top. It's masterpiece. Everyone should buy a physical copy of this now. Each year, there's usually only 1 to 10 albums that I would give this masterpiece rating. And it's just really hard for me to rank this album and compare it to Caligula's Horse previous work, because I really do think that all of their albums have been masterpieces. They're pretty close in quality, all of them. But I do think I like this one just slightly better than their last one, Rise Radiant, which I also love and think is a masterpiece. Let's quickly talk about the live show before I sign off on this video. Charcoal Grace is the first album where Caligula's Horse has gone down to being a band with only one guitarist. You can notice this a bit in the live show as they do play along to backing tracks. I think they do that anyways, even with two guitarists, to be honest, because they have a lot of piano and keyboard parts in the background. They don't have a keyboard player in the band. There are also those parts with flute and other woodwind instruments that they don't have with them, so those are played as samples. But all in all, the show was amazingly performed. It had amazing flow from the beginning to the end. The guitar playing from Sam Vallon was just mind-blowing when he went into his solos. Jim Gray's vocals were spot on, perfect live as well. Drums and bass from Josh Griffin and Dale Prince were also solid, but of course for me the standouts were guitar and vocals. Their set list didn't contain anything from their very first album, Moments in Ephemeral City, which is too bad because I love that album, but they covered material from each other album. They played The World Breathes With Me, Golem, those are from this album, Charcoal Grace. Then they played Slow Violence from Rise Radiant, Dark Hair Down from The Tide, the Thief, and the River's End, Bloom from Bloom, Marigold from Bloom, and then they played a couple more songs from Rise Radiant, The Tempest and Ocean Rise. They played Dream the Dead from In Contact, and then The Storm Chaser and Mute from Charcoal Grace. And that ended their main set, and their encore was Graves from In Contact. Really great set list. I loved everything in there. Graves is an awesome song for an encore. It's an epic, I think 15-minute song. It may be their longest song. The opening band when I saw Caligula's Horse was Earthside, and Earthside was also great, but I wish Earthside could have had vocals performed live with them rather than playing them as backing tracks. I know that would be hard to pull off for Earthside because they feature so many different guest vocalists who are not permanent members of the band. But I enjoyed how much energy the keyboard player of Earthside had on stage. He rocked out pretty hard, harder than anyone else in the band. He used a keytar for most of his solos. He's not a virtuoso keyboard player or anything like that, but it looks like he was having a good time, and that made the set really fun to watch. And Earthside played We Who Lament from their new album, Let the Truth Speak. They played 5 songs in total. Their songs are long. 4 of them are from Let the Truth Speak, and one of them is from their debut album, A Dream in Static. So besides We Who Lament, they also played Pattern of Rebirth, Watching the Earth Sink, and Let the Truth Speak, all from their newest album. And then they ended with The Closest I've Come from A Dream in Static. Great set from Earthside, great set from Caligula's Horse. I don't actually know if that tour is still going on, but if it is, and anybody's on the fence about whether to buy tickets, if this will be a great show, I highly suggest you check it out. Really great show, both great bands. And that's it for my thoughts on this album, this great masterpiece here, Charcoal Grace by Caligula's Horse, and the live tour. Hope some people watching got a deeper appreciation for Caligula's Horse and give it some more listens. Really sit with it, because it can take some time to really get into some intense music like this that's all over the place and touches on a lot of different styles. I think this band's great. I hope they keep going. I'm really excited to see what they do next. Let me know what you thought of this album down in the comments. Let me know if I butchered any of my lyrical analysis or anything I said about the music. I'm sure I made some mistakes. Feel free to correct me. I appreciate anybody's commentary, especially if the band themselves watches this video and can correct me. That would be amazing. And stay tuned for the next video on my channel. I hope to do some more lengthy album reviews. Maybe I'll do a lengthy album review on the new Isan album. These take a lot of time to go to the level of depth that I went in this video. So that's why I don't usually do these. I usually just listen to a lot of albums and then give like 1 minute first impressions on them. So if you like quick first impression videos on albums, then my channel's a perfect one to follow if you're into metal, rock, and prog music. I'll probably put up my top 10 albums of February video soon. And then I'm also continuing my series of my top 10 favorite albums of every year in the 1980s. So if all that content sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.